When people first choose a Shih Tzu, many carry a quiet assumption that feels harmless enough. This is a small, gentle, cute dog. So it probably does not require much thought. I believed this too. When you see a Shih Tzu lying calmly on the couch, sleeping quietly, rarely barking, and not destroying the house, it is easy to assume that as long as you feed them, bathe them, and take them out on schedule, everything will be fine. But after living with Shih Tzus for many years, a very different truth becomes clear. Shih Tzus are not difficult dogs to raise, but they are extremely easy to raise incorrectly without realizing it at the time. Unlike breeds that react strongly, Shih Tzus do not express distress through howling, violent destruction, or open defiance. They choose silence. They endure. And it is precisely this silence that makes owners careless. Most mistakes made with Shih Tzus do not come from cruelty, but from applying the mindset used for big dogs or independent dogs to a breed that was created to live close to humans. Among all these mistakes, one stands above the rest because it quietly gives rise to many other problems that owners rarely connect back to their true cause. Part 1. Do not force a Shih Tzu to be independent like a big dog. The most common mistake in raising a Shih Tzu is believing that a dog should be independent, should get used to being alone, and should be able to manage on their own. On the surface, this sounds reasonable. But for a Shih Tzu, this way of thinking can cause long-term emotional harm. Shih Tzus were not bred to be independent. They are not hunting dogs, working dogs, or guard dogs. They were bred to stay close to people, to observe them, to interact with them, and to draw a sense of safety from familiar presence. When you force a Shih Tzu to be alone too early, for too long, or treat emotional neglect as training independence, you place them in a situation they have no natural tools to regulate. What makes this especially dangerous is that Shih Tzus do not protest loudly. They do not howl, slam doors, or destroy furniture aggressively. Instead, they adapt in quieter ways. They may breathe more heavily when you prepare to leave, pace slowly around the house, stand waiting by the door for long stretches, lick their paws repeatedly, or sleep far more than usual. When you return, they may cling to you excessively, or become strangely distant and withdrawn. All of these behaviors are easily misread as personality traits. I once believed my Shih Tzu was well-behaved because he could stay home alone without causing chaos. It took a long time to realize that he was not okay. He simply did not know what else to do but endure, and that endurance did not disappear. It accumulated, eventually surfacing as separation anxiety, fear of abandonment, or subtle behavioral changes that made no sense unless I traced them back to the root. Forcing a Shih Tzu to be independent is like forcing a sensitive child to become strong by leaving them alone. The surface may look calm, but inside, the nervous system remains on constant alert. When a Shih Tzu lives in that state for too long, problems begin to appear that seem unrelated at first. Heightened startle responses, picky eating, restless sleep, or extreme clinginess. What a Shih Tzu needs is not isolation to get used to it, but to be taught how to be alone safely, slowly, with preparation, with rhythm, with returns that happen before fear takes over. Independence does not come from being abandoned. It comes from learning that even when alone, safety remains, and the person they trust will return. Living with Shih Tzus for many years taught me a crucial lesson: never mistake endurance for adaptation. When a Shih Tzu becomes accustomed to enduring discomfort, bringing them back to emotional balance is far harder than doing things correctly from the beginning. That is why, among the 5 things you should never do with a Shih Tzu, forcing them to be independent like a big dog always stands at the top of the list. Not because it is dramatic or obvious, but because it is quiet, subtle, and deeply damaging over time. Part 2. Do not ignore their eyes, teeth, and breathing just because they seem fine after the mistake of forcing independence. The second most common way Shih Tzus are quietly raised the wrong way is through neglect that does not look like neglect. Many owners genuinely believe they are doing enough. The dog eats well, sleeps well, plays a little, and looks clean on the surface. There is no obvious illness, no dramatic pain, no emergency. And so the small daily details are postponed, overlooked, or minimized. Shih Tzus are a breed that rarely collapses suddenly. Instead, their problems build slowly. Their eyes collect discharge day after day until irritation becomes chronic. Their teeth accumulate plaque quietly until gum disease appears. Their breathing grows slightly heavier over time, especially in warm weather, until it becomes their new normal. None of this feels urgent at first, which is exactly why it becomes dangerous. Because of their flat faces and prominent eyes. Shih Tzus require daily observation and gentle care. This is not optional maintenance. Eye discharge that is ignored does not simply stay cosmetic. It can lead to infection, corneal damage, and long-term discomfort. Dental neglect does not announce itself loudly either. It appears as bad breath, subtle changes in chewing, or reduced appetite long before pain becomes obvious. Breathing issues, especially in brachycephalic dogs, are often normalized by owners who believe that snorting or wheezing is just how the breed is. The problem is not lack of love. It is the assumption that if a Shih Tzu is not complaining, then nothing is wrong. But Shih Tzus do not complain the way humans expect. They adapt to discomfort, they slow down, they sleep more, they tolerate pain until it becomes part of their daily experience. By the time clear symptoms appear, the issue has often been present for months or even years. This kind of neglect is rarely intentional. It often comes from underestimating how much ongoing care this breed truly requires. Shih Tzus are not low-maintenance dogs disguised in a small body. They are high-detail dogs living in a quiet package. Their needs do not demand strength or speed, but consistency, attention, and patience. What makes this especially important is that health and emotional well-being are deeply connected in Shih Tzus. A dog that is physically uncomfortable becomes emotionally less stable. They may become irritable, withdrawn, or overly attached. Owners often attribute these changes to personality, age, or mood, without realizing that untreated discomfort is shaping behavior. Raising a Shih Tzu correctly means accepting that daily care is not a chore to rush through or skip when life gets busy. It is part of the relationship. Ignoring small signs because the dog appears calm is not kindness. With this breed, calm often means coping, not comfort. And just like emotional neglect, physical neglect in Shih Tzus is quiet, gradual, and easy to miss until it is no longer small at all. Part 3, do not punish a Shih Tzu for what happened when you were not there. If emotional and physical neglect are quiet mistakes, punishment after the fact is a mistake that feels active, justified, and yet deeply destructive for a Shih Tzu. Many owners return home to find chewed objects, accidents on the floor, or signs of restlessness, and react instinctively with frustration. The raised voice, the disappointed tone, the sharp look. From a human perspective, this response feels logical. From a Shih Tzu's perspective, it makes no sense at all. Shih Tzus do not have the cognitive ability to connect your anger to something they did hours earlier. Their understanding is anchored in the present moment. When you scold them upon returning home, they do not think about the behavior that happened in your absence. They only experience the emotional shift in you. What they learn is not "I made a mistake." But when my person comes back, the atmosphere becomes tense. For a breed that depends so heavily on emotional safety, this association is devastating. Your return should signal relief, reconnection, and stability. When it becomes unpredictable or stressful, the Shih Tzu loses its primary sense of security. Over time, this can create a dog that greets you with uncertainty instead of joy, or one that avoids eye contact, freezes, or shows appeasement behaviors that are often misread as guilt. There is no guilt in a Shih Tzu's response. There is fear and confusion. The dog is reacting to your emotional state, not reflecting on past actions. Repeated punishment teaches the dog to anticipate your return with anxiety, which only deepens the very behaviors you were trying to stop. A Shih Tzu that fears your return may become more stressed while alone, not less. This pattern often leads to a cycle that is hard to break. Stress while alone causes unwanted behavior. Punishment upon return increases insecurity. Increased insecurity leads to more stress during the next period of solitude. None of this improves behavior, and all of it damages trust. Raising a Shih Tzu well requires a shift in responsibility. Instead of asking why the dog misbehaved, the more useful question is what the dog was trying to cope with in your absence. Correction, if it is needed at all, must happen in the moment and in a way the dog can understand. Punishment after the fact only teaches the wrong lesson. A Shih Tzu does not need fear to behave. It needs clarity, consistency, and the reassurance that its person is a safe place. Once that sense of safety is compromised, behavior issues stop being about rules and start being about survival. Part 4. Do not place a Shih Tzu in environments. Their body was never built to handle after emotional pressure and misguided discipline. The fourth mistake often comes from misunderstanding the Shih Tzu's physical limits, because they are small, quiet, and not physically demanding. Many people assume Shih Tzus are adaptable to almost any environment. In reality, their bodies are far less forgiving than they appear. Shih Tzus are brachycephalic dogs. Their short noses and narrow airways mean that breathing is already slightly restricted even under ideal conditions. Heat, humidity, poor ventilation, or sudden exertion place additional strain on a system that has very little margin for error. What might be mildly uncomfortable for another breed can become dangerous for a Shih Tzu much faster. The mistake is rarely intentional. Owners leave the house on a warm day, assuming the temperature indoors is manageable. They take the dog along for a walk at a time when the sun is already high, believing that a short distance cannot cause harm. They let the dog play enthusiastically, not noticing the change in breathing until it becomes pronounced. Shih Tzus do not always signal distress early. They push through discomfort quietly until their body forces them to stop. Overheating in a Shih Tzu does not always look dramatic. It may begin with heavier breathing, slower movement, or a reluctance to continue walking. Because these signs are subtle, they are often dismissed as laziness or mood. By the time clear danger appears, intervention becomes urgent. What makes this especially concerning is that repeated exposure to unsuitable environments compounds stress. Physical discomfort feeds emotional instability. A Shih Tzu that is frequently overheated, short of breath, or physically overwhelmed becomes more anxious, more irritable, or more withdrawn over time. Owners may attribute these changes to temperament or age, without realizing that the dog is living in a body that is constantly working too hard. Raising a Shih Tzu responsibly means respecting the limits of their design. Cool. Well-ventilated spaces are not a luxury for this breed. They are a necessity. Gentle activity is not indulgence. It is protection. Ignoring these needs does not make a Shih Tzu tougher. It makes them vulnerable. A dog that feels physically unsafe cannot feel emotionally secure. And when both physical and emotional strain are present, behavior problems become almost inevitable. The Shih Tzu is not fragile by nature, but it is a breed that depends on its owner to make thoughtful environmental choices. When those choices are careless, the cost is paid quietly. Breath by breath, day after day. Part 5. Do not mistake quiet endurance for well-being. The final mistake is often the hardest to recognize, because on the surface, it looks like success. The Shih Tzu is quiet. The house is calm. There are no complaints, no destruction, no obvious signs of distress. Many owners take this as proof that everything is fine. But with Shih Tzus, silence is not always comfort. Very often, it is adaptation through endurance. Shih Tzus are not dogs that explode outward when overwhelmed. They turn inward. When stress becomes familiar, they stop reacting and start coping. This coping can look like sleeping more than usual, moving less, showing little curiosity, or becoming unusually clingy when their owner is present. Some develop repetitive behaviors such as constant paw licking, subtle digestive issues, or frequent minor illnesses that seem unrelated at first glance. These are not random problems. They are the body and mind carrying a load that has nowhere else to go. The danger lies in the assumption that time alone will fix things. Many owners believe that if a Shih Tzu has been left alone repeatedly and no longer protests, the dog must have adjusted. In reality, the dog may have simply learned that expressing discomfort changes nothing. This is not confidence. It is resignation. And resignation slowly reshapes a dog's emotional world. What makes this especially important is that Shih Tzus are highly sensitive to their owner's emotional availability. A dog that has learned to endure quietly may stop seeking comfort altogether, becoming distant or emotionally flat. Owners often describe this as the dog becoming calmer or more mature, without realizing that a layer of trust has quietly eroded. Recognizing this mistake requires humility. It means questioning the idea that a well-behaved dog is always a happy dog. With Shih Tzus, true well-being shows itself not in silence, but in relaxed curiosity, gentle engagement, and the freedom to express needs without fear of being ignored or punished. Shih Tzus do not need to be hardened. They do not need to be pushed into independence, silence, or endurance. They need protection, clarity, and emotional safety. Most mistakes made with this breed do not come from lack of love, but from misunderstanding who they are and what they were bred to be. A Shih Tzu thrives when its world is predictable, its body is comfortable, and its emotions are acknowledged rather than dismissed. When owners slow down, observe more carefully, and adjust their expectations, many behavioral issues resolve not because the dog was corrected, but because the pressure was removed. Raising a Shih Tzu well is not about control. It is about responsibility. Responsibility to notice small signs, to respect limits, and to understand that quiet dogs still feel deeply. When those responsibilities are taken seriously, the Shih Tzu becomes what it was always meant to be: a gentle, affectionate companion whose calm is not born from endurance, but from genuine security.